Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activities, powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. It's 23rd of December 2014. Welcome to our show. Certainly lots happening even in the holiday season. We do not get a reprieve from all the activities. Certainly GDP numbers came out better than expected. Um, Certainly lots of news coming through, and also we are receiving some more news in the FHFA this morning as well. FHFA house price index for October is 0.60% versus 0.30% estimated. So higher price index on the FHFA house price index than anticipated. So let's jump into where we are on S&P futures are higher by 10.75 at 2083.50. We can take a look at that is the high of the morning. We had a little bit of pop on that GDP news, currently at the high of the morning at 2083.75. Continuing with crude oil higher by 76 cents this morning at $55.98. We have gold lower this morning by $3.10 at $1,176.90. So we mentioned that 2,000 level. We'll get into the tech analysis as well. Also on the 10-year, we're at 2.186, climbing higher on the 5-year at 1.87, 1.687. We'll get into a little bit further on into that. 30-year at 2.765. So let's jump into yesterday's trading quickly. So if we take a look at yesterday's trading day, in the first half of the day, somewhat a sideways trade in the first half of the day, and then we carried through with a 10-handle rally in the S&P 500 into the close. The S&P 500 closed at 2078.54, higher by 0.38%. Dow Jones Industrial Average at 17,959.44, higher by 0.87%. And as Milton and I were speaking before the show, what an amazing turnaround. We had near about 850 point downtrend, and then right back up again where we were, before this recent volatility took shape. Nasdaq higher by 0.36% at 4881.42. That's a typo. That should be 4881.42. In the news today, we certainly have some geopolitical news that's coming through that is of interest. Certainly also keeping an eye on always is the Middle East with the ISIL situation in Syria, Turkey's southern border, and one thing that came out in recent news is a military official commenting that the ISIL situation, the airstrikes may continue for as long as 3 years. So that's something of interest just in terms of how the market digests that information. Certainly with the oil prices still being deflated, frankly, folks. It's been a considerable decline since the high earlier in the year, currently at $55.58. It is having an effect on nations, and we'll tell you what's happening with Russia and China. As we've been saying, we were a bit out in front on that, frankly, about a month ago or so when when Russia was basically sanctioned from dealing with a lot of the Western countries, one of the things we were out in front in is saying, hey, they will find another partner, and that partner will be China. And China is certainly stepping up where the IMF is not. So, for example, in this situation, the Chinese-Russian relationship, China is stepping up as the lender of last resort. It's what IMF is to other countries as well. They've offered a 24 billion currency swap to assist Russia, which allows Russia to borrow yuan and lend the ruble. They've won up the IMF also. Chinese did on Argentina in a $2.3 billion transaction, and Venezuela in a $4 billion transaction. Keep in mind something. China holds the largest FX reserve in the world, and that's at $3.89 trillion. So that's something of relative interest. Let's dive into some of the macroeconomic news that's coming out of the U.S. We had the Baltic Dry Index drop 0.8% to 788 points. For the year, 724 points. That's the low of the day. Low of the year. So that's something very interesting. We have been on a consistent and precipitous decline in the Baltic Dry Index, and that's typically it does tend to be a leading indicator. It's one of the most purest indicator of activity with respect to shipments, raw materials on cargo ships. So I think that's rather important to note. On the GDP side, we had GDP numbers this morning at 8:30. Quarter over quarter was 5.0%, expected 4.3%. Previous 3.9%. Durable good orders month over month negative 0.7%. Expected was positive 3.0%. Previous was 0.4, revised to 0.3%. On the durable X transportation was negative 0.4%. The expected was positive 1. So a lower durable good numbers than expected. But remember, one thing to note, durable good orders tend to fluctuate. Should there be an influx of, for example, it could be airline orders or transportation, other transport. So again, that could affect it. For example, even months ago during the summertime, one thing they came up was during an air show, a considerable amount of airplanes were sold, and that really brought up the durable good orders, and then the next month was lower considerably. So that does impact that number a bit. But again, durable good orders is one of the leading economic indicators that economists monitor rather closely. Some more comments. U.S. economy grows by 5% between July and September, fastest growing quarterly growth since summer of 2003, according to the Commerce Department. Also, we wanted to bring up, there's been some considerable fluctuation in crude oil. We'll pull up a very brief chart, and we'll dive into a little bit more of the presentation before we get into the technicals. But if you see here, we went right at that GDP number. We were at 56.12 approximately. We went up to $56.83, and right back down to $55.38 at 40 cents where we currently are. So a considerable fluctuation in West Texas Intermediate crude, and we'll see how that translates into, once the market opens, a little bit more participants in perhaps the ETFs that are associated with oil as well. Remember, airlines are affected by that as well, and so we'll dive into that. Let's take a look at what we have planned for in terms of economic calendar for the rest of the day. Certainly, we have a FHFA house price index. We discussed that as well. Again, that is a positive number of 0.60% versus 0.30% estimated. Also, we're anticipating consumer sentiment 9:55 a.m. Personal and income outlays at 10. New home sales at 10. Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index 10 a.m. And also we're expecting at 11:30 4-week two-year fixed rate notes and auction results and 5-year 5-year note auction results at 1 p.m. as well. Uh, let's jump into some of the technicals with Milt. Yesterday we discussed the goal certainly at 1200 that Milt's been talking about. Certainly it came off of that level, but a big level nonetheless. Milt, what's in your mind today as we're heading into? We know it's the holiday week. Caution here of volume, correct? Especially after that initial opening rotation. Really watch. We're advising traders to, don't overtrade. But what are you watching for today? Certainly impressive numbers out of the GDP affecting ES this morning. What's your thoughts on that?
It's one of those days, George, where it's the markets are up again. Oil is basically back to flat off the numbers. It's a low volatile week, so you're gonna have some gyrations early on during the day, and we'll see what happens after after the market opens, and at that point we can figure out the the movement going into the end of the week. Tomorrow is a half day for the markets. Thursday we're off. Friday we have a full day again. So it's going to be an interesting day moving forward. We're going to keep an eye out on a few levels. The ES is it broke that resistance new high level. We're going to keep an eye on that. See if it continues or closes lower throughout the day. We're keeping an eye on the oil because oil has completely reversed from earlier highs. It's down over $1.50 now from when it was trading after the GDP number came out. Basically, I believe it's on the stronger dollar. Many people are not even mentioning that, but people always have to keep in mind that the stronger the dollar, the weaker the oil. So it's a lot of people don't talk about that. It seems like people are all just expecting everything to move and whatever they want to believe, they believe. But at this point, we're watching oil correlate to the U.S. dollar. We're watching the ES futures off that GDP number. From we spoke to a few desks earlier, and they've been mentioning that they're a little cautious and don't understand why the market is so strong when, in all reality, they're getting a feel that the stronger the economy, the faster the rate rise. So we've been talking to a few desks. They really don't understand the large move. They're coinciding it again to what Tepper keeps saying, that you just got to go higher and higher and higher. So who really knows exactly what's going on? Who really knows what reality is in this market when you have durable goods missing in one of the largest misses? Then you have the GDP coming in at 5%. What is reality? Who knows exactly? Does the Fed know, or are they just quote unquote patient, or are they just quote unquote clueless? Who knows? I'm just saying. It's a person's opinion, but in all reality, if we're having a 5% GDP and everything is so amazing, how are rates still at zero? What is really going on? That are they? Do they see something that we don't see? If everyone sees unemployment, jobs, GDP, all extremely positive, how is the Fed still at 0% rates? I don't know. That's a whole new topic I can spend days talking about. We spend the days talking about it in the office, but that's a whole new topic. I'm here just to give you some technicals, and that's what I'm going to do. So, let me just jump on the ES real quick. ES is breaking to new highs. ES futures are the S&P futures. ES breaks to new highs off the GDP number on some volume. We're going to see how it trades throughout the day, keeping an eye on those levels, keeping an eye on everything like that. Ideally, your newest support becomes the previous resistance, which is about 75 level on the ES. We're going to keep an eye on those levels, keep an eye on that support. Upside resistance is nowhere to be seen because we are at all-time highs. So right now, 2075 to the support level. Below that, we got the 2070, 2066. We're keeping an eye on all that. We'll see how the day goes. We'll see how the day trading in the volume goes today. Yeah.
So let's scenario plan. Let's say we go through the holiday season. Let's say we steadily, gingerly move up, small moves the rest of this week into the new year. What do we want to see in the new year, Milt? I mean, we clearly want to see some conviction in these moves, correct? We want to see volume. It is a lower volume day today. What's your thought on that? What do we want to see in the beginning of 2015 to really confirm these moves, these really truly new highs in the ES?
Oh, you're not going to see the volume this week. There's not going to be any volume this
Correct.
week. This is just going to be a volumeless move. And people are expecting, we have the people on both sides of the camp. Everyone's, some people are expecting, the move's going to continue. Where else are people going to put their money? But then you have the other guys on the other side saying, you know what? This could be what happened. I forgot a few years ago when the markets had such a vicious move at the end of the year and the beginning of the first few days of the year. Then all of a sudden it was a complete disaster the rest of the going into the summertime year. So a lot of people have their own opinions. We won't really know until the beginning of the year to see if that volume continues or if this move just gets sold off because there is no volume behind the move. We're going to see what happens during the day. We're going to see what happens with the volume on the end of the day by the close. If the volume is there to sustain the move like this, then great. If not, we could see a retrace back to the support levels of 2075. I'll just jump on the VIX real quick. VIX. It's in that support range. It filled it's filling it by around the 14, 15 level right now. We'll see where it opens this morning. It's it's back into that complacency range, and that's where we have the pop, we have the drop. Now back to complacency. So it's typical that we're going to expect to see another pop. We'll see when that happens. We'll hopefully we can catch it. Right now we're in support. The other days, the past couple of days, we saw some interesting call buying going on in some VIX. So we're going to keep an eye on those levels, keep an eye on this level. It seems to every time it comes into the 14, 15 range, some call buying and the options come into play. So we're watching these levels, we're watching the support, and we'll see if it reverses or pops back up. Let's do oil. Let's do gold. I'll do oil last. Gold, we mentioned that 1200 number. 1200 number was broken. And it was trying to stabilize at that level. Currently, it's at 1176 this morning. It's in that tradable range, 1150 to 1200. So we're watching the range, we're watching those levels, keeping an eye on everything, keeping an eye on if the 1200 level is broken again. We're building a little downtrend at this level. Watching if that 1200 breaks, we could see retest of the 1250s, or we can see a continuation break on the 1150s. If that 1150 level is broken, we can see new lows going into the end of the year. So we're keeping an eye on that. The volume, like I said, it can manipulate names, especially when there's a no volumeless market at this point. We're going to keep an eye on everything and move on from that. Oil. Oil's back at that 55 number. How many times have we mentioned in the past few weeks $55 in oil? It seems to love that number. It's attracted to that number. It breaks above it, goes to 58, 59, goes back to 55. Breaks above it again this morning, 56.84, goes back to 55. It seems like everyone is attracted to the number. It's trying to build a base. We're watching the 53.60. That is a number we have on our board watching right now as a downside break. If that downside is broken, we could see the 40 handle. So right now, 53.60 we're watching as a key indicator to the downside continuation. Ideally for the bulls, you want to see backing and filling in this $55 level, higher, back to 55, higher, back to 55, higher, back to 55, and then boom, breaking out. So the typical moves, backing and filling at 55 for the bulls, a break below 53.60 for the bears, could see that 40 handle. George?
Thank you, Milt. So what you have, folks, is as Milton said, it's a rather low volume week, 2 week period. The way that the holidays are falling within the calendar, more or less in the middle of the week, with really a lot of folks taking some time off. Excuse me. So be very, as Mill said, be very cautious with the positions that you put on, especially if it's shorter term positions. You may see some, range bound trading, especially as volume dissipates. You may see a little bit of manipulation on some of these names, whether it's specific stock or indices, because there's much less participants within the market these 2 weeks. So what we'd like to do is let's get back into the presentation here. Let's take a check on where we are in the markets overseas here. Certainly Asia, Nikkei higher by 0.08%, Hang Seng lower by 0.32%, Shanghai lower by 3.03%. Again, Shanghai does tend to be on the one of more volatile indices in Asia. In Europe, the FTSE higher by 0.32%, DAX in Germany higher by 0.45%, CAC and pairs higher by 1.15%, and the IBEX in Spain is higher by 0.56%. So clearly higher in Europe. In the U.S., we still have the S&P futures higher by 10.25 points at 2082.50. We'll see on the Dow if we were able to break that 18,000 and sustain above 18,000 for the rest of the day and into the close. So we'll see how that points to the open there. On the commodities, energy, and raw materials. So let's dive into oil is now negative by 6 cents at $55.19. It is. Let's take a look. It is at the low of the morning. On the distillate side, we have gasoline higher by 0.0019 at 1.65. I'm sorry, gasoline 1.5369. Natural gas futures lower by 4.04 at 3.104. Heating oil lower by 0.0108 at 1.9406. We have gold lower by 3.70%, lower by $3.60 at $1,176.30. Silver lower by just under higher by just under 4 cents at $15.73. And we have platinum higher by $2.40 at $1,184.50. Cocoa lower by $21 at $29.65. So on the oil names, what we've done is, and we'll have this for you on a daily basis, and that is these are the ETFs and ETNs. They're really traders and investors really should keep an eye on whether you're trading them, whether you just want to keep them in your portfolios. You'll see some of the in response to oil moves, especially in the OIH. Take a look at the holders within these particular ETFs and ETNs. Some of them are short, some of them are longs, some of them are 2 and 3 times volatility. So that's something to keep an eye on. Also, so let's get into briefly the rate environment. The 5-year rate is 1.697. That's a rather impressive increase in yield within the last week or so. If we take a look at the Treasury yield curve, we have the 12-month increasing a little bit, which is rather interesting. We haven't seen that yet. We have so the 12-month is at 0.25. We had that a year ago at 0.12. A month ago at 0.12. So again, we're seeing a little bit of an increase in yield in that 12-month. We see the 2-year at currently 0.73%. A year ago was 0.39%. The 5-year is at 1.68%. A month ago was 1.61%. A year ago was 1.7. And the 10-year is actually lower. So we're seeing the shorter term, shorter duration treasuries are a bit higher, and we're seeing the 10 and the 30-year lower, even compared to a month ago and compared to a year ago. So that's rather interesting. Even when we're taking a look at the GDP numbers that were rather strong. So again, we'll continue to monitor that on the yield curve. So one of the things that also we wanted to just to bring up, Milton mentioned this morning. We always bring this up, folks. It's the relationship of the dollar certainly with other currencies. If you take a look at the DXY, currently at 90.082. If we go out a little bit further here, we'll pull up this chart here, and the DXY is rather impressive gains from the low in May. And if we go out a little bit further out, let's go about 5 years out on a weekly. We are at multi-year highs on the DXY here. And if we even go out a little bit longer on the 10-year, let's take a weekly on the 10-year, we are at higher than the 2008-2009 crises. We're looking at 2004 number, 2004, early 2005 numbers here, folks. So that's rather impressive. And when we take a look at the relationship of oil, remember, oil is dollar denominated here. So if there's a currency that's weaker than the U.S. dollar, and it's oil is even more expensive if the currency is lower than is compared to the U.S. dollar, and that's something to keep an eye on. If also taking a look at the euro, it looks like it's coming in a bit at 1.2191, and if we go intraday, it's just off its lows. Lows was 1.2188, so we're seeing some weakness in the euro this morning, and we'll see how that translates into the rest of the trading day. So a couple of things on specific stocks we have here. About a minute before the market opens, we had some positive mentions on specific stocks from Jim Cramer on CNBC. Positive mentions was HSIC, PDCO, SIRO, ALGN, XRAY, KEW, KMI, LAD, DBD, COST, and HSIC. On the negative side, we have APL and PSMT. We wanted to also get into a bit of the morning syndicates. We'll take a look here. ALDR selling $115 million worth of common stock. We're not seeing anything yet as the market prepares to open. ARCX selling $500 million worth of limited partner interests. ESPR, we have $200 million mixed security shelf. Again, a mixed security shelf can be a mix of equities, preferreds, various other securities within that offering. And we're seeing a indication of $39. That will be higher, about a 0.5% on ESPR. In HE, Hawaiian Electrical Industries, not seeing anything yet in early trading, maybe a little bit here, $33.09. Automatic mixed shelf, PEI, Pennsylvania real estate, we're seeing currently at $23.33 in PEI. We'll go through some of the insider purchases that we picked up this morning. In Upland Software, considerable amount of purchasing this morning, about $2.5 million worth. Stock is higher by about 0.7%, currently at $9.47. MILL, Miller Energy Resources, we had a purchase of about $75,000 worth, and MILL currently at $1.28, higher by about 2.5%. MLNK, MotorsLink Global Solutions, Handy and Harman, let's see, 10% owners purchasing about $600,000 worth. Currently stock is at $3.67, up about 1%. In BH, we have a $1.9 million purchase. We have BH currently at $362, lower by about 1% this morning, but that's a sizable purchase there. GLP, we had two significant purchases there. General Partners purchasing there. So combined at $5.4 million, rather impressive there. Global Partners, so we have currently at $35.83, up about 8%. CORR at $6.33. Not a huge purchase, but up about 0.5% at $6.33. So SLCA, U.S. Silica Holdings, we're about a $250,000 purchase in aggregate. Total at $27.08, higher by about 1.5%. And CPTA. And CPTA we have currently at $17.98, lower by about 0.8% this morning. We'll do a few more here. OHAI, and we have higher by about 1% this morning. Purchase of about $100,000 worth at $4.55. NRP, Natural Resource Partners, we had a purchase of about $200,000 worth, currently at $9.66, down about 1.2%. And we have two more here. We have RMP, and we have purchase of, this is Midstream Partners, so Rice Midstream Partners, currently at $16.53, up about 1.5%, about $100,000 purchase, and another about $40,000 purchase in RMP. So again, we'd like to see that, especially in the names that have been hit rather hard with oil coming in a bit. So let's take a brief check on markets before we have ES at higher by 8.25% at 2,080.50. We have crude oil higher by 14 cents at $55.42. As Mills said, really watching that 55 level. If we retest that 53.60, we could see a bit of a aggressive downtrend should we go through that 53.60, but really watching that 55 and 53.60. On gold, still lower for the morning, negative by $2.60 at $1,177. And we have the 10-year at 2.195, so a little bit of a tick up in that yield, in addition to that 5-year yield tick up as well. So, folks, thank you for listening to Unusual Activity, powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Wish you a great day.